What's going on, people? So, in addition to doing Unfiltered and doing the podcast all the time, I've wanted to start putting out some YouTube only content and try and get in something every day as we get going here again, because I know it's been a while and appreciate the new subscribers and all of that. As it's Saturday morning, early morning, as I do this and put this out there on the YouTube channel. Of course, you guys can get me on Twitter or X, if you will, at Casey Stern. Get all the episodes of Unfiltered, Apple, Spotify, everywhere else you get your podcast. But I came here today. This is short, with a little bit of a confession to make, a sports confession. I wouldn't consider myself highbrow, but as somebody who worked in the industry covering sports for 20 years, as somebody who has always been mostly about the major four, I really like tennis. Sorry, not a golf guy. But as somebody who's felt like high level in terms of knowledge of sports, I've tried to stay away from the smut sports. But I am sitting here on a Saturday morning telling you that I have a confession to make. All this Misfits garbage, if you've been following that, with Dylan Dennis and Logan Paul, and I mean, all the influencer boxing stuff with Jake Paul, we could throw all that in too. But in terms of this zone pay-per-view and this fight card, this prime card, my kids are obsessed and everybody loves these prime drinks. I like them too. The red, white, and blue ones are pretty darn good. But this prime card, I'm kind of in. What's wrong with me? Has this happened to any of you? Like, I sit there and, maybe, like, I don't know if I've been bored waiting for hockey season to start and the Islanders get going tonight. I don't know if maybe, between UFC cards, I haven't had enough combat sports to deal with. I don't know if it's just, not liking these people personally, and maybe that's part of it and how they sold the fight. Although Dylan Dennis has kind of become a babyface now, and just wanting to see somebody get their ass kicked. I don't know why, but I'm in. I'm sitting there and I got to work today, but I'm like, can I watch this on my phone this afternoon while I'm at work? Like, what's wrong with me? Has this happened to any of you? I mean, some of this stuff, John Fury is a nut job. So, that certainly helps, anything he's on. And if you haven't seen it, I do recommend that Fury's documentary on Tyson Fury and his family on Netflix was pretty good. It was fire. But I'm in. I have been completely sucked in. So now I'm sitting there and thinking, well, what's going to happen in these fights? So, like, the idea, and I've watched, like, a lot of the greats in this side of the business in combat sports, from Demetrius Johnson to, like, Hall of Famers, breaking down. I've seen, like, Cejudo and some of these guys now, breaking down these fights. It's like, how do you even break down these fights when you got Logan Paul's not a boxer? And I know he boxed Floyd Mayweather, but he's not a boxer. Jake is, even though he's not great, he is. And you got Dylan Dennis, who never thrown a punch in his life, gotten his ass kicked outside of the cage, and then in the cage and belt. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. He's basically pulling guard. He's not hitting anybody. Only hitting we've seen him do is when he's hitting pads with Alex Pereira. So I don't know what to expect. And maybe that unknown is part of why I'm kind of interested in this. Maybe that's why I'm kind of into it. I don't know. They say, like, it's like, watching I never understood, like, watching the car crash thing. But it is interesting when you see, like, even like somebody pulled over on the side of the road and then everybody in the right lane has to drive half the speed. And you think it's because they don't want to get pulled over because cops are there. It's not. It's because they want to literally slow down and see exactly what is going on. That schadenfreude of, I got to watch what's going on with them because it's not happening to me. Maybe that's part of this too. Maybe it makes you feel better about your own life because these people are nuts. I don't know. I really don't. But I wouldn't call myself invested necessarily unless I pay for this pay-per-view. Although you can probably find ways to stream it, I'm sure. But I got a confession to make. I'm kind of interested, which is just weird. And it is kind of interesting. Like, I think as a sports fan, you kind of can never soak up enough sports. And it is a weird pocket because, I root for the Giants. I love the NFL. Excuse me. I root for the Giants. They're ungodly level terrible. So it makes it a lot easier for me to have a space within the NFL pocket because I'm not really, diving in. I'm not covering it. And as a Giant fan, forget it. Then you got preseason in the NBA and preseason in the NHL. That's not going to do anything for me. Again, Islanders start tonight, and that will certainly, as you know, get me hooked. But maybe it's that little pocket. Maybe it's, I don't know, but I'm in. So am I alone? Have you gotten into or followed any of this influencer boxing nonsense? Excuse me. So that's number one. A confession to make. I'm in. Somewhat invested. Somewhat. The other thing I wanted to get into was as we sit here and look ahead to this final set of 4 teams in the playoffs in baseball, the interesting thing is that now there are so many fans and so many teams who are not in it that the conversation will start to begin with a lot of cities and a lot of fan bases about what happens next with their own team and what happens moving forward. And again, foreshadowing, I cannot wait to get into the Ohtani sweepstakes because that is going to be fascinating, especially what kind of contract he's going to get. Whether or not we're going to see a contract that is purely based on how down the line he pitches in addition to the hitting, even if it's hitting first before he pitches for however many months a season, whatever long that's going to be. The contract and the way that's done, it's going to be as creative and as complicated a contract as we have ever seen in the sport or in sports in general. Because we've never seen anything like this. And you could say like Dion in a prime now, but you could say Dion, speaking of prime, but never anything like this. I mean, it's totally different. Guy playing 2 sports even when Dion was. I mean, that's obviously there had to be fail safes and things that were thrown in there. And that's but this, in terms of in the same sport, nothing like this. Excuse me. Terrible is my cough. But amazing is what's going to happen with Ohtani. I still think Dodgers. I think that's where it ends up. But I'm just fascinated by this. And we always talk about, high-priced free agents and all of that. And yes, I think the injury and the surgery and the fact that he's not as much of a full-throttle Ohtani as it would have been, it absolutely is going to take a little bit away. But I am all in. Like, feed me all the Ohtani stuff you can. I'm locked into that. So the closer we get, the less teams there are, the more that fans start to kind of peer off because baseball's weird that way. It's the only sport where, you are really locking into an off season. It's not hammered down in free agency in 3-4 days the way it was when I covered basketball, the way it is in the NHL. So I can't wait for that. I'm totally locked in, and I'm pumped to get those sweepstakes started. We'll have a lot more in the next couple of days on Unfiltered when I get back going with that into the LCSs. So we'll talk about the League Championship Series and talk about the postseason and much, much more on the Unfiltered side as we continue. If you missed the last couple of episodes, don't hesitate to jump in Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast. And this afternoon, I'm curious, like, are you watching this Misfits card? Is this just me? Do you even know what I'm talking about? I mean, some diehards of baseball are like, who the hell are these people? And I get it. I feel it's like people who probably watch like bad reality television and you just feel like, why am I watching this? Like, I feel dirty. I need a shower to cleanse after watching whatever reality show you're watching. That's how I feel, telling you that I may get this Misfits card this afternoon. My confession. Pumped for Ohtani, pumped for the playoffs, pumped to have you with us here on Unfiltered. Always comment anything you want to get. Always good to talk sports back and forth. Enjoy the weekend. Take some time to smile and be grateful for what you have. And don't spend any time thinking about what you don't. Control what you can control and make the best of your day. Have a great weekend, people.